In 1963, when Whitworth Civic Hall was nearing completion, a meeting was called by Councillor Philip Holt, the chairman of the Urban District Council, to discuss starting an amateur musical and dramatic society in the village. Over 90 people turned up at the meeting, and as a result, Rio Rita opened in November, the first ever production for Whitworth Amateur Musical and Dramatic Society. Whitworth Amateurs had begun.
I was in Rio Rita, yes. I took the second lead with Derek Robinson, and oh yes, it was really thrilling, you know, after not doing anything, only plays, because I like plays, you see, but because I had done plays from St Clement's, because they had a good dramatic society, but oh, it was quite exciting to do a musical, and everybody who could dance was roped in, you know, because nobody really knew what anybody could do.
I remember one show, can't remember which show it was, but there'd been terrible weather, wind, rain, and the roof started leaking.
John West and myself was working the lights. Arnold came round and said, "Have you got a problem?" I said, "Oh, bloody, I've got a problem." I said, "There's water coming down on the dimmers, and we're having to stand on bloody handrail." And Arnold came round with an umbrella to stop the water from dropping onto the dimmers.
And I'm stood there with an umbrella over the top of them, keeping out water from going onto the electrics. Yeah.
And then, of course, there was the difficulty at the Civic Hall. The room was flat, and to begin with, audiences came, and God bless them, they supported us. But half of them mustn't have been able to see anything, never mind hear it, you know. So we had to progress from that, and we bought stillage in, you know, to be used in the hall, and that was we thought that was wonderful then. It was a great improvement of that.
It was a raked stage. It was raked, but then we built a platform out at the front to extend it and what have you. And I had Mike Law playing Roosevelt in Annie, and Roosevelt was wheelchair bound, wasn't it? So Mike come on first time, nearly ended up in the third row, didn't he? Being accelerated down the ramp.
I don't know how to describe it really, but we weren't very professional, and we weren't very capable, I imagine. But we were welcomed with open arms in the village. It was something new, with a new hall, and we were welcome, but there was a lot to be desired.
I used to go down into Whitworth and I'd come home and I'd said, you know, I felt like a film star today, because people had said, "Oh, Joyce, that show is good. Oh, it's really, really good. Oh, and you were good. Oh, your dresses were lovely." And I used to come home feeling, you know. Because if you think about it, with no cars, people hadn't any cars, the television wasn't popular, and it was a night out for, you know, everybody really looked forward to it because it was a night out. We nearly all had to make our own clothes because, of course, we'd no money when we started, and but everybody was everybody was local, you see, because they couldn't travel very far. So it was a really good thing for Whitworth, it was.
For the first 10 years, productions alternated between plays and musicals. The producer of the musicals was one Tom Horsfall.
Tom used to say, "Eyes and teeth. Never mind your feet. They won't look at your feet if you just smile all the way through, because you're not that good a dancer."
We were in rehearsal for South Pacific, and the lady who was playing Bloody Mary couldn't get her walk right, and Tom he toiled with her for a rehearsal or two. And then he decided to take matters into his own hands, and he tied her feet together, which she wasn't very pleased about, but she shuffled after that. She did what she had to do. So that was Tom. He'd fall out with people, he'd shout, but after rehearsal it was all over, and you were all friends again.
He would wait till he got home, then ring me up and resign, you know. And I remember once he rang me up, and I was waiting for this call, and I knew he was going to say resign. I said, well, before he could speak, I said, "Tom, if you're going to resign, you can't do it, because I've resigned before you." Put the phone down. He never did.
He was so enthusiastic.
To call his bluff outside.
And he was a right swine until the first night was over. And once the first night had gone all right, he was everybody's best friend. It was Sweetness of the Night then. One of the more colourful members of the Whitworth Amateurs was David Park.
The way that I got invited into playing, and it's quite a funny story, that I was having a year off. I was at St Gabriel's, you know, and I'd done My Fair Lady, I'd done Sound of Music, I'd done Oliver, I'd done The King and I, I'd done a lot of big musicals, and one following the other, you know, you get a bit drained. So I was having a year off, and I got a phone call from David Parks and said Mike Conroy dropped out of producing Showboat, and did I fancy it? Well, going to it was like going a step up, so I thought, go on, I'll go for that. What I didn't know, I was the 5th one he'd asked. That was Parky, wasn't it? Wonderful man.
David always changed in the ladies' dressing room, and that had been going in from year dot, and it seemed perfectly appropriate for David to change in the ladies' dressing room. And nobody thought a damn thing about it. It seemed perfectly normal that was how things should be, you know.
If someone stood up in a crowd and raised his voice up way out loud and waved an arm and shook a leg, you'd notice him.
They were brilliant, Paxi, weren't they?
They were good company, yeah.
Yeah, really good.
Sadly missed.
Oh, absolutely. Character.
First show I ever worked on was Oliver in 1987, and that followed me being in a play at the Curtain Theatre, the tail end of 1986. And on the last night of the play at the CT, we were playing piano and having a sing-song, and somebody came in and did some external catering, and about 2 weeks after, I was having a crafty cigarette around the back of our house, pretending to walk the dog. And a character came up to me and said, "Just the very man I want to see. I need you to be musical director on Oliver." And it was my friend David Park, who had clocked that I was a music student. And I agreed to be a musical director for Oliver without knowing what a musical director did, or indeed having ever been in a musical whatsoever. So I turned up and was given a music score, and they said, "Teach those people that music. And away you go," and so I did, and that was it.
1, 2, 3. You don't remember me, but I remember you. Not so long ago, you broke my heart in two. Tears on my pillow, pain in my heart caused by you.
I imagine I'm probably not the only person, but if I was going to be asked who I thought was worth mentioning for the amateurs, it'd have to be Andy Kelly, as he's been involved ever since I've been involved. So I think he's probably the only one at the moment who's been there longer than I have. Yeah, I just think for someone who's had not only performing roles but production roles and music roles and paying bills roles and building stuff roles and swearing at people roles and you know, generally sort of shouting and walking around and, you know, falling over things and, you know, shouting and you know, shouting. So yeah, I think Andy Kelly's done a lot.
This is a copy of every single programme that we've ever had since 1963. It's currently the Whitworth Amateurs Archive. 25, 26, 27, 28. I directed a total of about 44, 45 productions for Whitworth Amateurs in the last 26 years. Ouch. How do I find the time? I don't know, I just do it. I suppose I just work longer hours. Just get up earlier in the morning and go to bed later. I don't know, I suppose it's become a bit more of like a... Some people call it an obsession, I think, but I think I'd prefer to use the word vocation. I don't really know why I do it, to be quite honest with you. So when you get up in the morning and your list of jobs for the day include going to work and paying the bills and doing stuff for the amateurs. It just all blends into one. The fact you don't get paid for it doesn't really matter. The 2 to 3 weeks before show week are absolute bedlam. Show week's actually quite nice because once you get there, there's nothing you can do. Once you've got past dress rehearsal, it's especially if you're directing, it's up and running, and that's you done really. You're just making sure that everything's ticking over. If you're performing, that's a different matter because you got all your work to do that week. But that's the payoff of doing it, I think.
So life is this much to forget. We have no troubles here. In here, life is beautiful. So girls are beautiful.
I mean, sometimes, you know, you choreograph them and everything, or you produce them, and it's hard work and that everything. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I just enjoy doing that as much as anything, but I just felt like I was part of the team.
Yeah,
it
when
was
you get
nice.
to the end of the when you're in show week, particularly to what it's like you have to take a back step because
yeah, you do, because it belongs to the cast then,
production
doesn't it?
team.
So I played Lieutenant Brannigan in Guys and Dolls. There's a photo in 1988. The big thing I remember about that, which was great fun to do, was the guy who played Big Louie, really was a big guy, and I had a little cigar, and I got introduced to Big Louie, and Big Louie had this huge stogie in his mouth, which he took a puff on it and blew it out in my face, you know, and made me feel really small. But that was the first show. Yeah, but very enjoyable, great stuff. I either played coppers or military in everything I did at Whitworth. I played Lieutenant Ward, but I think he was a uniformed copper. All I can remember about Annie was that the dog was the star, and that we'd kept having to have breaks in rehearsal so that the dog could go and have a drink, or the dog could get petted by its owner, and I can remember all this stuff.
There was a dog going round doing the circuit, wasn't it? And this woman had trained this wonderful dog up to do exactly what it was doing, but it was £300 a week. Now we're going back a long time, and it's 300 quid a bit now, but 300 quid a week for this dog. And Parksy was after this dog. He said, "You've got to have this dog," and the committee weren't having it, so decided to audition dogs at the Civic Hall. So we put in the Observer advert for dogs. I went along, and the committee was sat in the middle of the hall with behind a table, the auditioning committee, and people were bringing dogs on stage, and then they had to sit in the middle of the stage and all like that. And there was the ghetto blaster they had at the side with loud music and big clapping. We had to see the reactions of the dogs and whatever. And I thought, what am I doing here auditioning dogs? There was no other alternative but to hire the £300 dog. So what did I do to pacify the committee? I wrote an extra scene in Annie, especially for the dog, so we got our money's worth. Which was terrific. Oh, that was good. One of a good laugh, yeah.
For many years it became a tradition for the stage crew to play a last night prank on the cast.
So there's been many happy times. There's been times in shows where the stage staff have thrown rice onto the stage. The dancers have come on, and of course they've rolled all over the stage on the rice that they've thrown down. But it looked very realistic as it was coming down, but it wasn't very realistic for the poor souls on the show. Things like that.
Oh yeah, they used to put pepper on sandwiches if somebody's eating something and it was ham. They used to put pepper on it, or if it were a drink of water, they'd put, you know, some horrible tasting liquid in it. Yeah, Graham did play a lot of practical jokes. I'd forgotten them.
In our house, I remember coming on to, again, a very, very difficult role, very, very technical, lots of changes, and being in the right place at the right time with cues for music as well as costume and props and staging the set. The set was all moving doors and everything like that. And in the middle of this difficult concentration, one of the lads who brought one of the doors on was called Rob, and Robert Stott, and he decided I'm in this world of concentration, this focus, this zone, in order to get everything right, because it was like I say, easily the most difficult thing I've ever had to do. And so he stood walking behind this on the stage, stood behind the door, just in his boxers, smiling at me like that. Put me completely off. But I managed to somehow recoup it and keep going.
The first Oliver, I don't know whether Hanno mentioned it or not to you about how it were the 3-day week, and electricity used to be knocked off at night, and we had to have a generator outside to carry on. As soon as electricity went on, we shot into the generator, and instead of having all the lights, we were on light bulbs on the stage. And actually, with it being Oliver, it worked very well because it was a dark, miserable sort of show, and people didn't really notice it, really. We got recommended in the Observer for doing it very well, actually.
Well, the best show that I had was No No Nanette. Now, when I look back now, it was nothing like what we've done since, but to me, it was right early on, and I spent all summer making every dress I made, every dress I wore, and a coat and hat, and I spent all summer sewing.
I did some wonderful shows. I had a purple patch with Whitworth because I had a good cast, good music, good dancing, and I had loads and loads of happy memories. But a show that sticks out, working with the kids, and because Annie at the time was serious box office, and it was a super show that we did with wonderful scenery. Everything about the whole show was right, and when everything, including the dog, so everything was rather super for that, you know.
The most vivid memory for me would be Godspell. I just think it was one of those rare occasions where, and it happens sometimes it's just like fairy dust is sprinkled on it, and everything just goes like that.
Comes together.
Yeah. And because there wasn't a weak link. There wasn't anybody that you're trying to, drag along or whatever. Nothing like that. And also, when we'd done it and we sat back, we could relax because we had total faith and trust.
Yeah. My favourite show, I don't even need to think about the answer to this question, is Chicago. Because it was fantastic dressing up in those costumes and being like sexy and all the rest of it.
The piano's hot, just a noisy hall, where there's a nightly brawl, and all of that jazz.
I don't think you can say one show is better than another. People, to me, are wrong to try and compare shows because everyone has its own little bits, its own failures, its own successes.
But I can't have a favourite because I love every show.
I got this programme out because my first show was Guys and Dolls, which is 25 years ago. And I've still got friends who are made in that show.
Like me.
Like Susan.
So Susie, what can you do me? I love you.
But do you know what? I actually miss the Civic Hall for the shows. The smell of going through the back door when show week was on,
What, the old Civic Hall?
The old Civic Hall before it burnt down. Going through the back door and you had all the makeup in the kitchen. You could smell the bar and it just had its own.
It was wet.
Yeah, it was just fab. Just loved it.
If you like to bop and stroll, come on down and listen. Everybody have a ball. Everybody rock and roll.
The big thing was that the unofficial bar in the kitchen. When I'm talking about unofficial bar, you couldn't move for crates of ale.
Whitworth Amateurs has always had a reputation for being a very sociable group.
My mum said I was drinking too much. She seen me in town and said he's going up pub too much, get him up to Amateurs. So he did.
And I
drank more.
And I bet you told him there were loads of single girls there. Is that how you got in there?
Yeah.
I know.
I said I couldn't believe it. There were this bevy of dancing beauties, weren't there?
Yeah.
We used to go to rehearsals at the Reform Club, drink at the Reform Club, wander down to the dog, was it? Yeah, the Dog and Partridge, that's right, Dog and Partridge, that's now Basil's. We used to go and stay in there, lock us in, stay there, and then I'd get up from there and go straight to work the day after. It'd be like 4 and 5 in the morning. It'd be stupid hours, wouldn't it? Yeah. I'd be getting in at home. I'd be creeping in the house, and my dad would be sat there having breakfast on his way out to golf, and I'd be like, "Are you coming in or going out?" I'm coming in. Yeah.
We had some great parties.
Oh, yeah.
We had some great parties, didn't we? Really, really did. God, we must have supped some alcohol.
Oh baby rock, oh baby rock, whoa baby rock. Yeah.
In more recent years, Whitworth amateurs have performed at the Curtain Theatre in Rochdale. Modern shows such as Rent, Our House and Chess have cemented their reputation as one of the most energetic, talented and established societies in the area.
The Terror of the Thames!
Now in its 50th year, with over 100 shows worth of experience, the future looks bright for Whitworth amateurs.
A lot of the shows that Whitworth do at the moment are better than you see in Manchester. When it's a touring company, I'm not saying like the top class shows, but if it's, you know, a touring company that's doing 7 Brides for 7 Brothers or Oklahoma, they're Whitworth are just as good.
It's very much more a professional orientated society with more professional performers, staging, music, I think everything.
I think it's got to be though, because, you know, when it started it was like Sunday school panto concerts, but now professional theatre is much more accessible for everybody in Manchester, whereas in the past you had to go to London, which people didn't or couldn't afford to, and now they can go into Manchester and see a professional show, so we've got to be as near as we can to that standard.
I just hope now that these younger kids, can we call them, that are coming in and doing it, are enjoying it as much as we enjoyed it. I would love that for them, and I would like that for our children as they're growing older and get involved and just have fun, because it was about that as well. It was the social and fun and everything, not just the shows. Yeah, definitely.
When it's quiet, you sit down and you ponder about your best years of your life. And the best years of my life were from 1980 to about 1992, which were Whitworth amateur days, because we had such a bloody good laugh.
Didn't we?
We did.
When the shows were going on as a kid, it was very much part of the community, because people didn't have cars, so the only people who were in the show at Whitworth were from Whitworth.
Yeah. Everybody was so committed. You know what I mean? They really were. And it was so much a part of your life. Your social life was such a huge thing, wasn't it? And you know, making you pack lunches and things to go, taking your tea. You know what I mean? But we'd go to such trouble, and we'd have like mini feasts, sharing and all that. Yeah.
And costumes and making.
And just getting home absolutely exhausted. But it was quite a big part of our lives, I think.
Yeah. I joined particularly because the 3 children joined with me, and I wanted to do something we could do as a family, which worked out obviously with them, and then after that with grandchildren. So that was my main thing.
Because my mum and dad were involved, I've been involved, the kids have been involved. I've loved all that. I've loved all that. It's been a brilliant hobby. You know, if somebody had told us all those years ago when we did that first show that we'd now be watching our own children on stage, we would just never have believed. I don't think we'd have believed we would still be in touch with each other. I don't think we had any concept of how long a friendship this was going to turn out to be. And it's proven to be a lifelong friendship.
My granddaughters are now involved, so that's a lifetime story.
Yeah. My mother's been involved as well with all, got involved on the committee and helped run things and do the backstage stuff and all that. And it's just been a thing that's close to my family, which I think there's nothing means more than that, is there really? You know, to say it's a hobby, most people say you go playing squash. You know what I mean? You can't say, right, take my whole family with me. Do you know what I mean?
I had some happy times at Whitworth. It was really, really good times. Made a lot of good friends and still got them friends. And I'll always support Whitworth. They've been a great bunch for me.
But I don't know what it is, but there is a bond, there is something out there. It's a friendship, the social life, or it's just the people of Whitworth and the North in general.
Thinking back, I think it was the right age and all the rest of it. Those people that I met in that era are the ones that have become lifelong friends, like yourself, Mel, Darren Fricker.
We'll always be together.
appreciated that it was going to become so much of my life, socially as well as, you know what I mean? It's just...
It gives people a community thing. They work together as a group. And at the end of it, there's a show, you know. So you're having a good time rehearsing, or you should be having a good time rehearsing. And then there's a big plus. You've got the big week comes up. Tremendous amount of tears on the last night especially from the younger members who've been on a high, and all of a sudden they realise it's being taken away from them. And I always have an old saying: there's always another show. There's always another show.
We met some great people, made some good friends.
Friends for life as well.
And drank a lot of beer.
Oh yeah, we drank a lot of beer.
Too much.
That's about it.
That's why we're pickled. That's why we can't remember half of it.
Yeah.
And on that note.
Yeah.
The men always sang "Good Night, Ladies" after a show. Yeah.
The men singing "Good Night, Ladies" at the end of every performance without fail, led by Alec Bramwell, and that got quite emotional sometimes.
Go on, sing it for me.
Good night, ladies. Good night, ladies. Good night, ladies. We're going to leave you now. Merrily we roll along, roll along, roll along. Merrily we roll along o'er the deep blue sea.
Oh, we got all come flooding back then.
Yeah.
We got all
Then went through all things.
We got all nostalgic.
Crazy sound, a